Hi, guys. Welcome back to Figuring Out Friday, brought to you by Michael and Mike. And again, if you guys enjoy the content, be sure to leave a follow, and we'll be posting every Friday. Today's podcast will be on the liver and the diseases that could come from it, and uh, what to avoid, what irritates your liver, things of that nature. Mike, do you have anything to add?
No, we'll go through and talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, so like the title of this podcast, Your Liver and the Hidden Epidemic of Chronic Disease. And we go to the next slide. Yeah, so right here, included for the audience a picture of the liver and the different functions it has. We're not gonna go into each one specifically, but just surface level and a couple of them. But just know that the liver has like above 500 different functions. It mainly filters the blood coming in through the portal vein system. Uh, it also stores and releases glycogen, so that's why your liver is important for regulating your blood sugar and very important for people with diabetes. It also regulates hormones, specifically estrogen, and metabolizes medication. And of course, also alcohol, fats, and cholesterol. Even your excretion, it makes bile for digestion and converts um, ammonia into urea. Uh, so basically, if your liver slows down, then your whole system starts to slow down.
Yeah. And
And yeah.
oh yeah, I was gonna say like people look at when like most of the time when I ask someone about liver, like they think that its only function is to filter alcohol, I guess,
Hmm.
because that's I guess most known what is liver for. But I mean, it's not just a filter. You can also say that it's metabolic center. Like
Yep.
it manages blood sugar levels, hormones, metabolism, detox, digestion, everything. And like once you start having liver issues, like you might not be noticeable straight up, but like noticeable, I mean like yellow eyes, jaundice,
Hmm.
and also like pale skin, all that. But it might start with acne, maybe brain fogs,
Yeah.
and like fatigue.
Yeah, there's a lot of early signs that people can look out for. Again, like the fatigue, brain fog, usually just to avoid the different diseases that could span off from your liver. So that's a good thing to mention.
Yeah. Well, here I'm just gonna explain one of the major functions since currently I'm taking biochem
Hmm.
metabolism and I was talking about when we were learning about liver. So, like one of the main functions of the liver is storage of the glucose and also release of the glucose in our system. So, when we eat carbohydrates, like it gets digested, turns into glucose, and that happens everything in liver. So once liver starts producing this glucose, it can either like send it as a fat storage, or it can send it to muscles, so muscles can use it as a quick energy.
Hmm.
So also depends like what reason we taking carbohydrates for. For example, if like pre-workout if you take pre-workout carbohydrates, they'll be used as your muscle energy, like because muscles require quick energy during lift sessions. But when we have like already high amount of glucose in our bloodstream, it just converts it into glycogen and keeps it into glycogen storage. So after fasting or sleeping or whatever, after our blood glucose levels drop, the hormones send a signal to the liver, so liver starts transforming glycogen into glucose, and then you can just send it to our body and increase our blood glucose. So that's kind of overview of how glucose and liver is connected.
Yeah, and it's again supposed to be more of a metabolic center. It's only starts to become a problem once again that glucose can't really be transported and it starts turning to fat, which we'll get into in the next slide. So right here for the connection between the liver and your gut. Again, earlier I did mention the portal system and everything. So basically, how this portal works is it's a connection between your liver and your gut. So everything absorbed from your gut goes straight to your liver first, and when you eat food, the nutrients don't go directly to your bloodstream. They have to go through the portal vein first. So every carb, fat, amino acid, the dyes from your food or preservatives, they all hit your liver first. And then from then on, it decides whether it stores it, converts it, detoxify, send it out, or if it's like something foreign or bad, like it just flags it. And then it starts becoming a problem when you develop things like a leaky gut, and this can happen where toxins enter your bloodstream because there's not like a because there's what's it called, there's an increased like permeability because your your gut lining is usually selective in what comes through and what doesn't come through. So for again those nutrients, they can it goes through, but then it also blocks out things like bacterias or toxins like alcohol. And if your gut lining is irritated or inflamed, then that permeability becomes more loose.
And you become kind of more and more inflamed.
Yeah. And so again, besides alcohol, there's also stuff like processed food, and also something a lot of people did not know is antibiotics can also disrupt the whole system. Uh,
I mean, everything that has man hands in it can basically
yeah.
destroy us, and whatever is processed. Like if something is processed, it's not supposed to be processed, because once like label says artificial flavors, the like FDA got only one rule about artificial flavors, and it is that it has to be 100% fake or artificial
Yeah.
for it to be labeled as artificial. So that means it's 100% processed, so it doesn't contain any type of nutrients that can be useful for our body. And only thing it does is just disrupts your hormones and kind of disrupts your enzyme activities. So your
Mhm.
whatever enzyme is supposed to, like, even sometimes it can mimic, like, yeah, if you guys listen to yesterday podcast, like, there are some kind of substrates that can mimic things that not supposed to be in body. So once it does that, enzymes gets activated, and then inflammation starts, and other chronic diseases might happen.
By that, do you mean like things that invade and pretend to be something that's natural
Yes,
or
yes,
yeah.
yes, yes. So, and imagine like we were supposed to get nutrients, and that nutrient is supposed to activate your enzyme so we can get digested. But once some artificial substrate uh, mimics that nutrient and it starts to digest, like, there is no nutritional value in it. It's just
Mhm.
toxins,
Yeah.
and all that just disrupts our gut.
Yeah. Um then besides that, of course, oh wait, we can wait, go back. Yeah, but also again there's the I could go into the alcohol connection to this, and it usually it hits your liver twice. usually first it's through intoxicating your metabolism, and the second way is by inflaming your guts. And then on top of that, the processed food, it usually reduces the, you guys know in your gut you have your microbiome diversity, and usually with processed food it lacks fiber. So if you're lacking fiber, then you have like a weaker gut system, more inflammation, decreased insulin sensitivity. And examples of that, it's not just like McDonald's, but it's also refined carbs, seed oils, or snacks that are low in fiber. And in today's day and age, there's a lot more snacking than before.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it's not just about the increased calories that you have in snacks, which is the top of the line for a lot of the people, but you're also weakening your gut as time goes on. So someone who um, always out eating fast food, they, let's say they go for like as low calorie as possible, they'll still have these issues and they just don't notice it. That's why
Yeah.
it's sort of
Information.
like, yeah, it's sort of like a epidemic, but it's it's small where you don't notice it until it becomes like a huger thing. And also earlier I did mention medication, and this usually has to do along the lines of more of antibiotics. So like a kid who early on, let's say they take antibiotics, and again, not to crap on antibiotics, but like they are life saving, but of course this is if you use it respectfully and not unnecessarily. So it would also sometimes wipe out protective bacteria, and this allows for like bad bacteria to start growing
Mm.
essentially, or just stuff that's more like invasive and opportunistic. So yeah, and
Yeah. I mean, since I've talked about like how carbohydrates gets like digested, might as well just say how fats and proteins get
mhm,
digested, just to cover the surface. So once once we take like a fat, so cholesterol is kind of fat molecule. So it does, once we take this cholesterol, it goes into our system. Liver starts producing triglycerides.
yep,
So it can also like packages fats into lipoproteins for
mhm,
transport, and whatever like is excess carbohydrates, it can also turn it into fat. And this happens when like you exceed your like metabolic demand. So if you over consume something and you don't need any more of it, like your body doesn't need it, so where can it take? So we just send it to your storage, and that'll be fat storage. So it doesn't matter if it's carbs, fats, or like even sometimes excessive protein might cause that. But I mean, protein is like least, let's say, like least likely to happen. But like anything over consumed will definitely
mhm,
turn into like fat storage. So in fatty liver diseases, like we have this um, process where triglycerides accumulate. So you have excessive amount of triglyceride, and this all accumulates inside the hepatocytes. And this basically can be either oxidized or exported. So if it gets exported, it just sends it into your visceral fat. So your fat, whatever fat you have, visceral fat is like fat in this area. So it just adds up and it disrupts your cellular function and just promotes inflammation. For proteins, when we intake protein, like liver can convert it as into ammonia, like Michael mentioned, and ammonia is like toxic byproduct, and it has to be then processed into urea, which is safely excreted through our urine. And also, like it can produce albumin, which maintains like fluid balance into our system and bloodstream, so you have good blood flow. And also, protein helps us to digestive protein helps us to synthesize like clotting factors. So if you have any cuts, like it can stop and prevent excessive bleeding. So that was like quick overview of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins.
Yeah, and back to the thing you mentioned with the carbs becoming the fats or lipids.
Yeah.
So for the audience out there, that's the process called lipogenesis. And basically, with that conversion of fat over time, it will build up and accumulate in your liver cells. So that basically just means you become more insulin resistant.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if you have more insulin resistance, then that develops into diabetes, and then that spans more into cardiovascular diseases like stroke or heart attack. And again, that's again taking your liver from it being a metabolic center into a fat storage, which is not what we want. And kind of like the last thing to wrap up on this slide is you also develop like low grade stress or an inflammation, which will affect the hormone signaling in your body. And this is because the liver has cells that their job is to detect bacteria and activate inflammation. And whenever inflammation is activated, they release cytokines. And the purpose of this is, again, just to go through the process of inflammation, but usually it's best done in short bursts. So imagine you're always stressed out, then your liver's always inflamed, right? So instead of the short bursts, you're having this inflammation going on constantly and daily. So this would disrupt the um, insulin signaling, and again, it pushes lipogenesis and increases the fat storage in your cells.
Yep.
So here we have NAFLD, also known as non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And this basically means that fat accumulates in your liver, like we said. And this even happens, so this is the shocking part, is it even happens in people who do not drink excessively, right? So this kind of changes the whole conversation because for decades, uh, liver diseases usually meant that it was something associated with alcohol, but you don't need to drink for your liver
Yeah.
to like get this disease again, which shocks people. And if someone has cirrhosis, which is that like end stage for liver disease, you would immediately assume again heavy drinking, or someone just has normal liver damage. Alcohol is again the first suspect, but basically when you eat excess carbs, again the blood sugar rises, insulin is released, and uh,
Takes
that insulin,
glucose out of your blood system.
yeah, and that insulin tells your cells to absorb any glucose. So with this happening constantly, would uh, the high blood sugar, I guess, frequent eating and the snacking and low movement, uh, the cells start to respond less effectively to insulin. So that would cause this NAFLD. And again, with it being strongly linked to insulin, um, a lot of people don't know it, but about 25 to 30% of adults globally have this. And in some regions, even closer to, let me just check the data real quick. Like they will have NAFLD, but they won't even realize
Notice.
that they have it because this, I guess, symptoms are not like high enough.
Yeah.
So I said 25 to 30% in adults globally have it, and even in some regions, 35 to 40%. And usually 35 to 40% of adults have um, insulin resistance. So that's again 1 in 3 adults. And then in certain regions, like in the Middle East, some studies have shown that insulin resistant went above 40. In South Asia, it's around 30 to 40, just to name some. And yeah.
Yeah. Basically, like it can be caused by excess calorie intake, like I said,
Mhm.
and because it just adds up fat and fat because it just gets converted into fat. Also, Michael mentioned chronic insulin elevation. If you have always high insulin, that means like it just pumping out the glucose out of your bloodstream, and you always have that low glucose, which is not good. Like glucose, excessive amount of glucose might be bad, but everything has its limit, is an imbalance. So we
Yeah.
have to make sure it's always balanced. But once you have that more chronic, you have chronic insulin elevation, that means like your muscles or even like the cells doesn't respond to that insulin like properly, so insulin cannot take all the glucose out. When your liver just starts producing it more and more and more, and that's how you get chronic elevated insulin. And also high fructose consumption
Mhm.
can cause it. So that means like sweetened sodas, mostly diet sodas I've seen use fructose. You also have fructose in fruit, but I guess yeah, anything excessive amount can be harm.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's much harder for you to go over the excess limit of the fruits, but still, like you cannot just eat and eat like two bowls of whatever fruit. Yeah, you gotta know limits of everything.
Yeah, that's a good point because I was gonna go more into that, but fructose isn't fruit because it's also in next I was gonna mention that again the percentage I was talking about earlier, it's in
Mm,
adults, but you're also seeing more NAFLD diagnosis in children, which is concerning. Also teens and adolescents, and it's because of two big factors. And the first one is, of course, that ultra processed food with the frequent snacking, low fiber, and I guess instead of underage
all
drinking,
yeah,
there's
all those additives also in the food.
yeah. So the soda, and for why fructose is it's very intensive. It's because it metabolizes almost entirely in your system,
Yeah.
in your liver. So that just drives the lipogenesis again. But that's I'm kind of confused too why the fruits aren't
So,
affecting it then.
so because it doesn't like man-made fructose is like contains
Mhm.
way like higher amounts, let's say just whatever the molecule is.
Yeah.
So that's why I was saying like it's very hard to like over intake fruit because like
Mhm.
it doesn't cause that much problem because it's natural. It's just just grew from the ground,
Yeah.
you know. But unlike glucose, like I was talking about mentioning how glucose has pathways and fructose can actually bypass some of the regulatory steps that glucose has to go through. So that's why it like fructose can directly feed into a pathway. So high fructose intake can like increase triglyceride synthesis. So then that triglycerides gets converted into fat cells, increases also uric acid, increases oxidative stress, which can cause inflammation, and promotes visceral fat, which is fat in this region, brown fat.
Yeah. That again has to do with the second reason I was gonna go into, which is yours. Basically, uh, a lot of liver diseases they're not just from anything that can happen, but also your lifestyle. So, like a sedentary lifestyle where nowadays kids are moving less, like you have more screen time,
Mhm.
or they're not outside playing as much. All this leads to less muscle activity, and like you mentioned earlier, the muscles they use glucose, and again, this is a shame because your muscle is a huge disposal sink.
Yeah.
Because if you're living a unsedentary or a sedentary life, then that glucose that you have, it has nowhere to go, so then it turns into fat. and muscle is a huge like fat glucose user. So with just a combination of obesity, poor sleep, and chronic stress, and again that high snacking, over time that would lead to just more inflammation, scarring, and then in some people, cirrhosis, which like a next step past NAFLD.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess we can go to the next slide. Um,
Next slide.
yeah, and then here, just got some lab markers. So you can get your blood taking, and the results analyzed is usually important to tell if someone's healthy even before they feel sick. So first off, there's TG, which is
Triglycerides.
triglycerides. Yeah, and these are fats that circulate your blood system. So when you eat excess amounts of carbs, your liver will convert them into triglycerides. And if they're high, it just means you're over consuming those carbs. And by carbs, it's usually sugar or like the refined kind. Um, you could also be insulin resistant, or your liver is overproducing the fats. So here, optimal is under 100 milligrams. Acceptable is under 150, and borderline high is 150 to 199, and above 200 is high. Then for HDL, this is high density lipoprotein, and this is often called good cholesterol just because it transports the excess cholesterol that you have out of your tissues and back into your liver. So therefore, if you have low HDL, it's associated with the insulin resistance and chronic inflammation. And it's the for the two levels, there's a separation because in men, optimal is above 150, and for women, optimal is above 60. For guys, it's if it's lower than 140, that's bad. And for females, if it's lower than 150, that's bad. And there's this clear separation just because women have higher HDL usually, and this is because of uh, they produce more estrogen, and the estrogen then produces more HDL. But they also store their fat differently in females, usually around their thighs or hips and around their organs. So that's why there's two different like results for men and women when it comes to HDL. Uh, then you have the ratio between triglycerides and HDL. And you can find this ratio by just dividing triglycerides by HDL, and that ratio usually correlates with insulin resistance and fatty liver risk. So the ideal number should be less than 2. Borderline is 2 to 3. Above 3 is high risk, and 4 is concerning. So you can still have, again, like normal weight if you check the scales every day, but if you have a bad ratio, then it's like, what's the point? And then next is HbA1c, and this basically just means hemoglobin A1c, and it's your average blood sugar that's reflected in a 2 to 3 month range. Just because your red blood cells they live for only about 90 to 100, I think 120 days, and the more sugar that's in your blood, the more hemoglobin that coats the sugar, or no, the more sugar that actually hemoglobin that's coated by sugar. So normal levels listed here is 5.7. Pre-diabetics have around 5.7 to 6.4%, and diabetes is 6.5 and above. But usually, health practitioners aim for 4.8 to 5.3%, just because once you start creeping around the like 5.6 to 5.7%, I believe, your insulin resistance is already developing. So you're even if you're not technically pre-diabetic. Yeah. Do you have anything to add before I go into reversing nature of liver damage?
Oh, I was muted.
Oh, you're good.
Um, I was saying you can also get like a hormonal lab and just see like where you stand, because one of the functions of the liver is to regulate our hormones, and like liver can metabolize and excrete estrogen through bile and urine. So if estrogen clearance is impaired, like estrogen can accumulate, and this might cause water retention, bloating, acne, also mood swings in
Mhm.
women. And for males, like testosterone metabolites are processed through the liver. So cortisol is broken down and cleared. We all know cortisol. You cannot have cortisol spikes if you want to, be deep bloated and peak shape. So you have to make sure you pay attention to your cortisol levels. And then also like in liver happens thyroid hormone conversion, which is partially influenced by liver health. So if liver is not healthy enough, then it kind of drops how thyroid hormones can be converted and excreted. So when someone like presents with hormonal symptoms, the conversation should not be just held about the glands. Like it can also include liver function and metabolic health. That
Yep.
was that was my part.
And then for this is the reversible nature of liver damage. And again, since we're talking about all these liver diseases, uh, without talking about reversibility, obviously a lot of you guys would be anxious out there. But again, not all hope is lost because your
Yeah.
liver can still regenerate, since it's one of the most regenerative organ in the human body.
Yeah.
Because the cells in the liver, they have the ability to re-enter mitosis, so that cell cycle to just divide and multiply. And when that's usually when there's like an injury or loss of tissue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
uh,
mean, I
mhm.
don't know how true it is, but scientists say even if you have like this big of a liver left, it can just regenerate itself into a whole. And when they do this, like surgeries and stuff, they just cut a liver. Like I think so, and it just regenerates itself. It's pretty cool fact
Yeah, I've
about.
usually seen videos, even like half the liver, it's still able to regenerate.
Yeah, so I mean, it's one of the, I don't know if I want to call it easy, but definitely one of the easiest comebacks you can make if you have this fatty liver.
Yeah.
So it just makes your process easier because it can just regenerate and help you. You just have to support it and provide it with good
It's like
nutrition.
the right environment, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is low-key a shame for like stuff like the other organs like heart or the brain. They can't regenerate. And um yeah, it's basically, since your liver is constantly exposed to toxins and stress through the portal system, that's why like evolution in a way has favored a built-in like repair system with this. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm just gonna say what can help to what can help to support this process, right?
Hmm.
Regeneration of the liver. Nutrition, I guess. First things first, like adequate protein intake is foundational, because protein is like base of our body. That's why protein helps to build all the other cells. Like Vegetable intake and fiber intake supports like detoxification enzymes that is in the liver. As we mentioned, one of the main purposes of liver is to detox whatever we have in our system. Also, like garlic and onion, garlic and onion intake can provide sulfur compounds, which also helps with liver health. Uh, Bitter greens can stimulate bile flow, and bile flow can digest fat, like it says, uh, bile into the what is it called, gallbladder,
Mhm.
and then gallbladder just get pours that bile into our intestines to digest that fat. And we also have omega 3 fatty acids. They help to reduce hepatic inflammation, and hydration is main point because it just supports elimination. So once you hydrate yourself, it will just rinse out all the leftovers. And same with kidney and hydration. Like once you're more hydrated, it's like you have less chance of accumulate the unnecessary molecules in kidneys. So hydration just rinses out whatever is left over, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, from the previous slides we spoke, I guess it should be like logical now that reducing fructose and like refined carbohydrate will lower our fat accumulation. Also, resistance training can improve insulin sensitivity. So, like we mentioned, insulin sensitivity is when liver sends out insulin, so insulin can activate better and take all that glucose out of our bloodstream, and so molecules are more sensitive to insulin, and it will also help to reduce visceral fat, brown fat that I mentioned, like even moderate weight loss. So, if you have personal trainer, nutritionist, if you don't have one, we are here. There's weight loss, even like 5 to 10% of your body weight loss can improve like liver fat levels. So, and I think it's much easier to burn like liver fat compared to visceral fat. So
Mhm.
that's why even slight weight loss immediately starts improving your liver health. Also, sleep. I mean, sleep plays a role in everything. It just basically rebuilds us when we're asleep. So it regulates metabolic hormones and like reduces cortisol during fat deposition. So if you have high cortisol, then you have cortisol spikes, which is not good. It's not good. You have to make sure you pay attention to your cortisol levels. I don't know.
Yeah, and if you also have, if you're deprived of sleep, it also promotes fat being
Yeah.
stored in your liver alongside the
Yeah,
raising cortisol.
because once you're sleep deprived, like your cortisol levels go up. Still, you see, you have cortisol spikes. I don't know if I can recommend to tune in with clavicular, but
Hmm.
sometimes he knows what he's talking about. So if you have that cortisol spike, then it's easier for fat to be deposited into storage, which will get you fatter, I guess. And chronic stress just elevates cortisol levels. So yeah, it just promotes fat storage, which is I don't know, everything, basically excess amount of everything just somehow turns into fat, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean, you cannot fix this like immediately, but you have to learn. Like you just have to jump into a river and just go with the flow, and on a way you will just start picking it up, and it just gets easier towards the end, you know.
Yeah, for that part, so basically not all the liver damage is equal, and there's like a spectrum. Again, just like different stages
Yeah.
as liver damage goes on. Um, the first stage is usually fat consumption, accumulation, and inflammation. And then this is usually paired up with the second stage. Uh, first stage is fat accumulation. Second stage is the inflammation, and they're paired up just because those two are highly reversible. And then stage 3 is fibrosis, which is when scar tissue starts to form, and this can also be reversed. And there's the last stage, which was cirrhosis, which is like really, really bad scarring that to the point where it usually leaves permanent damage and much harder to reverse, which is again why paying attention to the earlier symptoms and awareness is very important, just so you don't end up to that stage 3 and 4. And besides what you mentioned, I think the only other thing you did mention the doing cardio to
Yeah.
just reduce fat. Of course, like
Yeah.
it's harder for
Yeah.
visceral fat, but also the resistance is also resistance training is very important just because
Insulin
it,
sensitivity.
yeah. So it's not just about losing weight, but also improving your insulin sensitivity. Again, with the more muscle mass you have, the bigger glucose sink that you have, so it improves that insulin signaling. And it's nice because it doesn't put like all the stress on your liver, since your muscles also kind of compete with your liver just for taking that amount of glucose. So the more muscle mass you guys have, the better insulin sensitivity.
Hmm.
But
Also,
yeah,
I was gonna say, like acupuncture also can help with like liver function because from traditional Chinese medicine perspective and standpoint, liver is associated with smooth flow of qi, I believe how it's pronounced, right?
yeah.
Do you know how it's pronounced? Q and I, qi, right?
I think it's
I think qi because qi gong is a thing, right? And
yeah,
yeah, I think it's qi, and they say it is like connected to the emotional like regulation is, and especially it's connected to anger and frustration.
yeah,
So liver qi stagnation can manifest irritability, headaches, digestive irregularity, and also tension because like all that maybe if you're stressed again stress if you're stressed out throughout the day and you kind of get angry, you get frustrated, and that just builds up in your liver qi, you might see these symptoms. Like modern research like suggests, and I mean acupuncture itself suggests that it can influence the automatic balance, reduce this sympathetic overreaction, and also lower inflammation markers because acupuncture can also help to detox liver. Also, like one of the holistic ways that I heard of is castor oil. You can put castor oil on your liver area, and it can help with detox. I know that's one of the ways. I believe. Um, I mean, I'm taking chlorophyll, and I think chlorophyll also might like boost your detox ability. You know, maybe impaired with liver and chlorophyll
yeah.
together. Boom.
I'm not too sure on that one, but
Yeah, but yeah, the one of the functions of chlorophyll is detox and detoxification. Also, I my guess is since liver does detox, I guess these two can pair up much better, and
yeah.
then I mean it helps me, and I can recommend it. You know, and as a nutritionist, and we have nutritionists at Healing Your Way. Myself, maybe Michael. Do you get like nutritionist title after you get your degree or no? Yeah,
Uh,
right.
degree probably not, but after if you do like online certification like
Mm,
ISSA, then yeah, we do take sports nutrition, but again, that's just a class.
exercise science, right?
Yeah.
So I guess yeah, I guess you're like more personal trainer after your
Mhm.
degree. Yeah. Also, personal training can be used also to drop that body fat, and dropping body fat can also reduce liver fat. And as I was saying, as a nutritionist, like you can kind of build up the plans around how to intake protein more adequate fiber and, like, let's say, anti-inflammatory fats, and also you can kind of strategically divide carbohydrate intake throughout your day. So you can, once you encourage resistance training and add resistance training in there, maybe some cardio,
Hmm.
yeah, you can. It's definitely possible to make those comebacks, and you we can like educate you without any fear, instead
Yeah,
of saying like labeling liver is damaged. You just can say how to adapt newer environment and how to make a comeback.
yeah. And again, I also really like how you mentioned that. Uh, what is it? Your wait, the the needling
Acupuncture.
acupuncture. Yeah, it helps with your emotions because that's another thing that needs to be done in order to reverse the damage. So again, with that like cortisol and inflammation, the less you have, the better. Other things would be reducing your alcohol intake, of course. So aiming usually 3 to 6 months clean will like crazily reverse the damages. Uh, Pooping daily is also something that's important, just so you can
And
breathe.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you can do that by fiber intake.
Yep. Yeah. Again, less fiber you have, the harder it is to use the bathroom.
Yeah,
Consuming probiotics, so yogurts and kimchi and all that, just to
sauerkraut. Yeah.
yeah, just to support your gut biome, and also tea as well, because again, there's a lot of teas that you guys can make, like dandelion tea, ginger tea, turmeric, um, and they all just support liver function, how the bile you produce flows, digestion, and just reducing like any incoming loads of toxins that your liver has to deal with.
Yeah, I heard like one of the Chinese traditions is that they first thing in the morning they drink like warm or lukewarm tea in the morning, which helps to boost your metabolism.
Yeah. There's I've also heard there's like certain times where you uh drink certain types of tea. So like in the morning, green tea or ginger tea is better. And then after a heavy meal, something like dandelion tea. And in the
Mm.
evening, turmeric or uh ginger. Yeah. But besides that, again, if you guys cut weight, so even 5 to 10% body fat reduction will improve the amount of fat buildup in the livers. The resistance training, walking daily, getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep, uh, instead of not just alcohol, but also the different liquid sugars, so like soda, that will dramatically increase the insulin resistance and increasing fiber. So
Yeah.
I think
I
the
mean,
recommended was 30 to 45 grams a day
fiber.
of fiber. Yeah.
Yeah, fiber is from 28 to 38, and I
Okay.
believe like average intake is like 12 grams on regular American.
Yeah.
So yeah, above 20 definitely. And also like we are not going deep into these pathways that we're mentioning, because in that pathways you have multiple steps, and even if one step fails you can start accumulating something, and that will cause some type of disease. Like currently in biochem we are studying glycolysis, which means breakdown of glucose into pyruvate. Then you have gluconeogenesis, turning pyruvate into glucose. You have glycogenesis, which is turning glucose into glycogen, and glycogenolysis, which is breakdown of glycogen. And even if one step fails, there are like multiple steps before you go there. And even if one step fails, that causes like different different issues and different diseases. Like if you have like 10 step, like gly- glycolysis is like 10-step process. If first step fails, you have some type of disease. If second step fails, you have another disease, and it's like that. It just adds up. So you cannot like you cannot go that deep here. You know, that's like med school education. But the main point is, even if it's out of the balance, like liver health is out of the limits. Maybe it's overly. I don't know if it can be not overly healthy, but even a little bit of damage, like it can disturb these pathways and can cause some type of issue that might not be noticeable at first, but can cause a very big issue later.
Yeah. Also, one step that I didn't include on the slides, it's between NHDL and cirrhosis, and that would be NASH, or I believe it's non-alcoholic, um, s- something itis, but it's basically just inflammation of the liver when there's fat in there, and this can lead to cellular injury. And not everybody with a fatty liver will develop NASH, but once inflammation starts, the risks also elevate. And basically, in the liver, the fat accumulates, and the cells are stressed out, but they're not necessarily injured. And here, it can lead into things like mitochondrial dysfunction, uh, the oxidative stress, and uh, this, and then also they activate the cytokines. So
Which can cause inflammation.
yeah, and then
So
there's also it was stellate cells that begin laying down collagen. So this is basically that early fibrosis. Uh, so your liver is not just at this point, it's not just storing fat, but it's being attacked within itself. So
yeah, and I mean, I didn't see a question in the chat, but I just checked it. If you're still here, question is fatty liver associated with glucose release? Then yeah, going back to it, fatty acid. I mean, fatty liver means that we have the excessive amount of fat storage. So yes, you can be having like glucose release, increase the release and output in the moments where it should not even be happening. You know,
mhm.
so healthy liver first. If you have healthy liver, when you eat, your glucose levels go up in the bloodstream, which signals that liver to release insulin. So once insulin is released, insulin takes that glucose out of bloodstream, takes it to the liver, does all that pathways like we were talking about, produce energy. If muscle needs it, it sends it to muscle. But when you have like a fatty liver, like it cannot. Sometimes it might be a point, get to a point where it does like it cannot store anymore. It just floats around in your bloodstream. So you have just excess. You're just walking around with excessive amount of glucose in your bloodstream, which means that your insulin sensitivity, if you reach to that point where you have fatty liver, that means your insulin sensitivity is also low. So your insulin cannot absorb that much of glucose. So you're walking around with high glucose in your bloodstream.
Yeah, and also something to mention what is people with fatty liver, they after a normal meal, they might have normal glucose levels, but they have elevated fasting glucose. And that's basically
Mm.
because overnight the liver would just over release the glucose. Uh, and I think that's just with a problem with your liver signaling.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's also why some of the tests you have to be fasted as well. Otherwise, your liver would overproduce glucose in that amount of time. So then the lab results are like there's percentage of error as well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's why it's important to be in intermittent fasting because
Hmm.
during that period, you're basically emptying out your glycogen, uh, like storage, and like once you have that empty, when you eat, you just fill that storage back up and use it as a energy. But if you don't deplete those storage, it just adds up on top of it. So it creates a new storage, which just makes you even bigger, and
Yeah.
gets you on healthy liver.
Mm.
Well, yeah, I think we pretty much covered what is liver and what type of diseases we might come across and what's going on in liver, what's the function of the liver. Holistic. We can just go over, I guess, what can we do at home, just
Mhm.
real quick to start comeback of damaged liver. As we mentioned, adequate protein intake, fiber intake. Uh, for detox, maybe use castor oil. You can put it on your liver. Helps with the detox. Acupuncture helps with liver detox and tri flow, like we mentioned. I guess
There's also the gut repair, so
yeah,
fiber intake, fermented food intake.
yeah, taking
Uh,
care of your microbiome
yeah,
will
and
definitely help.
yeah, reducing again the processed foods and
Hmm.
unnecessary medications. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, like those artificial stuff. We're currently talking about in other podcasts, bridging the gap. So if you're interested in those additives and what kind of toxins are found in our environment, which can also indirectly affect to liver health, maybe, and you can tune in into that podcast. And yeah,
Mhm.
all these artificial stuff definitely have big impact on our gut and liver and our microbiome. So if we get out of balance, that it just has domino effect, and you have to stop it before it's too late. You know.
And if you guys also come to Healing Your Way clinic, there's also red and salt saunas. So even like 2 to 3 sessions a week for about like I'd say 15-20 minutes or maybe even more. That heat exposure can help with your circulation and also improving your insulin
Yeah.
sensitivity as well. Yeah.
Also detox. That
Yep.
also helps with detox because your skin and sweat glands are just releasing all that detox molecules that is not needed in our body.
Yep. And then restoring the body basically back to normal function and metabolism. Yeah.
Yep. Well, thank you guys for tuning in, and please go ahead and like and subscribe on our YouTube. Make sure you follow us on here on Rumble, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, where you can see our clips, highlights. Also, we upload full episodes on YouTube and Rumble. You can check out the episodes if you missed previous episodes. And yeah, if you have any questions, you can reach out in comments, maybe send us an email, maybe leave a comment, and whatever topics, if you guys have want to us to speak about any specific topic, we can also do that.
Hmm.
So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and see you next week. Figuring out Friday out.
See you guys.